I would like to reiterate what Mary already mentioned, which is the role of all of you in this particular study that she's responsible for putting together for all of us. So we haven't ironed out all the details yet, but in the next series, 1 to 2 of these particular sessions, it's going to change from a passive format, which we're in right now, where you're hearing from all of us, to an interactive format. And so that means we might be asking for you guys to actually provide us some legitimate data based on your particular companies or your opinions or whatnot. So heads up. And so please keep coming, because probably starting on the next one, we're going to start transitioning to that format, and your participation is invaluable. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Jim Fenton. And this is the guy with the tie. You haven't, he came in a tad late, so you may not have saw this. It's probably going to speak for itself on the introduction here. But Jim is the director of the UCF Florida Solar Energy Center, which is over in the Titusville, Cocoa Beach area. And he's been in that role since January of 2005. He leads a staff of 140 folks in the research and development of energy technologies that are enhancing Florida's and the nation's economy, the environment, and it's focusing also on educating the public, students, and practitioners on the results of their research. In addition to his duties as the director of FSEC, he leads a 12-member university and industry research team in a $19 million Department of Energy research program to develop the next generation proton exchange membrane. That's in the fuel cell engine domain. Back to my other slides. I don't want to get into the batteries. Prior to joining FSEC, he spent 20 years as a chemical engineering professor at the University of Connecticut. His research activities in fuel cells, pollution prevention, and sustainable energy are helping FSEC expand its nationally acclaimed research and education programs in hydrogen, alternative fuels, solar energy, and buildings energy efficiency. He's the author of more than 120 scientific publications and a number of book chapters, and he holds 3 patents. With that, Dr. Jim Fenton.
Let's see. New Bill Gates products always cause me problems. Escape always seems to work. So I saw myself on here earlier. Fenton. Oops. Okay. So thank you for that introduction, Christy. I'm here to talk today about opportunities. All right. I'm going to give you some history as we move through this as well. The Florida Solar Energy Center was founded back in our first energy crisis. Okay, this was in the 1970s. Right? And at that time, we were concerned about the fact that we were importing a reasonable amount of oil. Of course, we're importing a lot more oil than we did back then. And as a result, there was an airborne oil embargo, and we implemented at that time automobile CAFE standards. Okay, that was when we implemented our automobile CAFE standards. All right. Today we are about 23 miles per gallon average automobile now. The interesting thing since that period of time is that the automobile has gone up, the average automobile has gone up 800 pounds and it's doubled in its horsepower. Okay? i.e. we're all driving pickup trucks. Okay? Now, as you know, the price of fuel and everything else like that's changed, and some of the dynamics are changing. The interesting thing, though, is if you want to look at things like energy, we tend to get focused on the manufacture of energy, the production of energy. Okay? I'm going to try to get you more focused on the efficient use of it. Okay? Because the best energy is one you don't use. Okay? So efficiency really is where we should be looking at. It's not quite as sexy, okay, as you might think. Right? But that's where we need to go. And then, of course, I'd like to, being at the Florida Solar Energy Center, move towards energy generation from a renewable perspective. But I'll always tell you to go with efficiency first. And usually that's the most cost-effective thing to do as well. Let me move forward. Page up, page down. There we go. Okay, I've listed the program areas we have. Christy mentioned that we have 140 employees. I like to put this in a perspective that the business world loves. I have an $8 million payroll. The state gives me $2.5 million. Most of my employees are on soft money. They don't win DOE department grants, they're unemployed. It's simple. Okay? We're good at what we do. all right, because of that reason. Solar, of course, is our name, and we were founded, as I said, 30 years ago, and at that time, we were founded to test and certify all solar hot water heaters sold in the state of Florida. This would be safe for domestic hot water generation, right, as well as a solar pool hot water heater, right? And we still carry out that mission. We actually test and certify all solar hot water sales in the whole United States. We do that via a national program. In Florida, if you buy a solar hot water heater, it'll have an FSEC stamp on it. Okay? We've grown into the photovoltaics area as well. I have about 10 people on the professional side in solar hot water, 10 people in the photovoltaic area. We test and certify all PV sold in the state of Florida, as well as all the systems that are sold in the state of Florida. Okay? Now, my biggest group is the buildings area. We have 40 professionals in high-performance buildings. We're the only university at UCF that leads a DOE-sponsored Building America program. Okay? I didn't even know UCF existed 5 years ago, and I'm sure you've been told by now that we're the 6th largest university in the United States. So we're a well-kept secret. Florida Solar Energy Center and its activities are a relatively well-kept secret as well. So of these 40 employees working on high-performance buildings, I have 2 architects working full-time on Habitat for Humanity homes throughout the whole United States on making those homes energy efficient. Okay? So our least expensive homes, we can make energy efficient. This isn't just for the wealthy. Right? In the photovoltaic area, we're one of 2 universities that lead photovoltaic applications throughout the whole United States. We have a nice resource out at the Florida Solar Energy Center. The testing and certification in the solar thermal area continues today. In the hydrogen alternative fuels and fuel cell area, I have 20 employees tied into that. We actually run a DOE program, so I actually wear a Department of Energy hat in the membrane that will be used in our automobile fuel cells of the future. So we have that activity going on. And then we also have about 5 people in the K through 12 education arena. Okay. Now we do a lot of training. We run a banner center, okay, on behalf of workforce in Florida on the training of photovoltaic installers. Okay, and this is being done in conjunction with about 10 community colleges and so forth. So I think you're going to find that the opportunities in the alternative energy areas are rising, efficiency as well in that. The opportunities are in the jobs, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. And then demonstrations of these technologies, of course, are important. Now I want to give you a background. Okay, we've used the word markets. Okay? In a lot of the cases, alternative energy is always going to be alternative until it's cheaper. Okay? So when we want to talk about solar, wind, biofuels and some things like this, you have to put this in perspective as to what the current technology is costing everybody. Now, everybody in this room knows the price of a gallon of gasoline. Everybody in this room probably knows where the cheapest gasoline is. How many times did you drive by a price sign today on the way to this symposium? It's a marketing marvel, the fact that gasoline, you're bombarded with the price of gasoline. Okay? Occasionally you might go by a liquor store and see a price of Budweiser. But other than that, it's the price of gasoline that bombards you all over the place. Most Americans don't know the price of electricity, nor do they even know what the units are. Okay? As Christy pointed out to you, a gallon of gasoline has no energy merits with it. It's just a volume. And yes, ethanol has less energy per volume than gasoline does. So your miles per gallon will go down. Okay? But you pay for it based on gallons. Right? Electricity is actually paid for using energy units. It's a kilowatt hour. Okay? And as you can see from this slide I've got here, it may be difficult to see the prices. But Florida down there in the lower right is at 11.2 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay? And we can call that 12 cents if you want. You can see on the top of above the map here, if you look above the map there, you can see that the United States in 2007 had an average price of 10.64 cents. Now, I'd like you to look at the states that surround Florida. They're all cheaper. Okay? I'd like you to look at West Virginia. West Virginia is probably somewhere around 6.6 cents. Then let's go over and look at Utah. Okay? That's 8.17 cents. Okay? So when people talk about cap and trade is going to cost us too much, doing all this kind of stuff, you're already paying for it, folks. Okay, the state of Florida made a decision that we wanted to use cleaner burning natural gas to provide our electricity. Okay, so you pay more than those southern states that are just above us to the north. Okay, they're paying less. They're burning more coal. Utah burns exclusively coal. Now, if you look up at Washington and Oregon, cheap hydroelectric. Okay, you look at Texas, 12.41 cents. You look at the state that I came from, most expensive outside of Hawaii, okay, on here, 18.6 cents. Okay, West Virginia, which isn't too far away, is paying less than half for the cost of electricity. So, where do you suppose the markets for alternative technologies are? In the states that already have the cheapest electricity around, i.e. it isn't broken, why do we have to fix it? So I can explain why the Boston area has all the clean technology areas. I can explain why California does. San Diego, which was mentioned earlier, has time of use rate electricity. This is where you pay for electricity as a function of time. Okay? Because as you might expect, at around 2 o'clock, say in Florida, that's when everybody's got all their air conditioners turned on and we're making electricity. Well, the utilities have to provide us with electricity. Okay? Right? They turn on their most expensive power generators around 2 o'clock, and they hope to turn them off as fast as they possibly can. Okay? Well, time of use rate in San Diego is 32 cents a kilowatt hour. 32 cents. That's their time of use rate. I.e., we're paying a fortune for electricity, we better do something about it. Now, when I'm talking about alternative energy technologies, alternatives won't be alternatives when they're cheaper. Okay? Now, I didn't make the map here. I have the map, and if there's an opportunity later, I can put it back up. That actually shows renewable energy portfolio standards, okay, for different states, okay, and they're colored in green. And you can imagine that those people that are paying the most for electricity tend to have far more renewable energy going on than people that have the less. It has nothing to do with your resources. Okay? Now, Utah's blessed. So is West Virginia, depending on how you look at it. Okay? In that the coal they burn is their coal. So you might argue environmentally maybe that's not the right thing to do, but they purchase their own coal. So when they pay for electricity, all the money stays home. Florida spends $55 billion a year on fossil fuels. This is our transportation fuels, this is our coal, this is our natural gas to make electricity, and so forth. $55 billion a year. Ballpark, half of that leaves the state. Think about that. That's a lot of money. And I think the economists in the crowd will tell me that, roughly if you keep the money here, it actually develops, 2 to 3 times the value of the actual dollars you keep here. Okay, so roughly 55 billion, 27 billion is money that we ship out of the state, multiplied by 2 to 3. That's a lot of money. Okay? So it is important that we're clean. Okay? I'm more concerned about keeping the wealth here. Now, if you don't use energy at all, even if it's Florida's wonderful sun or biomass, okay, you keep the wealth here too. Because what are you doing? You're making an upfront capital purchase. Okay? You own it. It's yours. Now the value goes up, you keep it. When you buy energy, you just consume it. It's gone. Right? Some things to think about.